Everyone calls me Uncle WHYTE. I am the CEO of Roverman Productions. I'm a playwright. I am all kinds of things. But talking about being a playwright, at Roverman Productions, we produce a play every quarter. And this quarter, our play runs at the National Theatre on the 1st of July. It's a Sunday, and the 2nd of July. And the title, The Woman in the Bathroom. The show times are 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. So if you happen to be in Accra or can drive into Accra and watch the show and go back, that would be fantastic. So once again, welcome to ENCORE. We are grateful that you take the time to join us every week. We don't take it for granted. In particular, I would like to acknowledge the following who are currently online. Equia, Apia, Jemima, Dorothy, long time no see, Sheila, Ruth Frimpong, Bernadette, Aristotle Jr., Francis, our own Mama B, Gideon. Gideon, do you have any Bibles? Because when I see Gideon, I think of Gideon Bibles. And then Ebenezer, Corte, you are all welcome. These are not the only people, but every week I'd like to acknowledge members of our virtual family and say that I see you. I appreciate the fact that every week you make the time to join us. So welcome on board. Now, last week we touched on the father wound. The father wound. I said the father wound is a trauma, is a kind of trauma wound affecting more people than drugs and alcohol combined. We said that it cuts deeper than flesh and bone, and it works its way to the soul. We said it affects both the rich and the poor alike without any prejudice. The third, it is called the father's wound, and it leaves a wake of destruction in its path more devastating than any natural disaster, more particularly because it is passed on from generation to generation. So we defined the father's wound. We said it is a deficiency or absence of love from your father, whether he intended it so, whether it was intentional or unintentional. The wound tends to be so deep that not even religion itself can reverse the emotional and psychological damage left by your father. Now, so we looked at how the wound is inflicted. We looked at the effects of the wound, of the father's wound. We looked at how to heal the father wound. We ended by saying that fathers are not just necessary for mental, emotional, and spiritual health of their children, but they also play a vital role to the overall health and well-being of children, especially the boys. Now, that was last week. After the presentation, the kind of interaction that went on told me that there's a need to go a little bit deeper with the father's wound. It looks like everybody, many people related to it. And so somebody said, well, why don't we do part 2? So this is part 2 of father's wound. And for part 2, I'm going to do something very different. I'm going to tell you my personal story. My personal story with the father wound. My experience of it. How it's affected me. What kind of person it made me to be. And what has brought me to this point. So, I begin by telling you that I was my father's favorite. My father had 5 boys with my mother. He had a son before he married my mother. My mother also had a son. But in the marriage between my father and mother, they had 5. It was blessed with 5 boys. I was the first of the 5 boys, and I was my father's favorite by far. He did not hide that. He made it known to everybody, this is my favorite son. And yet, even though I was my father's favorite son, I was not spared the father wound. And I suffered the father wound for 3 reasons. 1, I suffered it because he himself carried his own father's wound. My father never spoke of his father. He spoke of his mother. never about his father. It turns out that the man was totally absent from his life, and he was raised by his mother. So my father himself had a father wound, and of course, whenever you have a father wound, what happens is that you pass it on. And that was what he was passing it on. So even though I was his favorite, I was not spared his emotional inability, unavailability, and all that. The second reason why I suffered a father wound from my father, to whom I was his favorite, was because of his alcoholism. My father was an alcoholic. He drank till he passed out, and he drank often, almost every evening. I'll tell you the effect of that. And the third reason was because of his death. As far as I'm concerned, he died too early for my purposes. I was 14 when he died. And when he died, he took away with him all my hopes and aspirations. So I'm going to go to how, now that I look back, how each of those reasons manifested and how it affected me. So let me look at the effect of my father's own father wound on me. What it did was that it made one man's mistake transgenerational. His father's mistake, and possibly his grandfather's mistake, in not being the kind of man he needed to be, in not being the kind of son, a father he needed to be to his children, became transgenerational. And it is something that we all need to be aware of. Otherwise, we will carry on the shortcomings and the failings of our parents. The second thing is that it modeled what a man is to me. So my image of a man was my father. And my father was himself a damaged man, was a flawed man from his own father wound. And yet, I didn't know any better. That was the father in my life. That was my first hero and my first role model in my life. So he was modeling for me a flawed perception of who a man ought to be and a father ought to be. And three, it made it difficult to have any close relationship with him. Because of his own father's wound, he could not, even though I was his favorite, he could not still have the kind of relationship that I'm sure he would have loved to have. Let me go on to his alcoholism, what effect did it have on me. His alcoholism brought me a deep sense of shame. Because you see, you are 12, 13, 14, and then you are home, and your friends run home to you and say, Kwabena, your father is lying in the gutter. Go and pick him. And that, you have no idea what that does to you when your father becomes alcoholic and people get to know. It's different if he was coming home to drink. My father didn't like to drink at home. He didn't like to drink alone. He wanted company. And because he wanted company, he bought company. He would enter a bar and buy drinks for everybody around. So he was always popular in the places where he drank. Unfortunately for him, he could do that because his drink of choice was apeteshi. Apeteshi is cheap. It's easy to be generous with apeteshi. I wish he had taken to whiskey. I'd like to see how he would buy whiskey for everybody. But it brought a very deep sense of shame to me. Two, that led to a sense of inferiority complex and a sense of insecurity as well. Because, let me talk about the insecurity first and fear, because I was afraid he would die. I remember I couldn't count how many times he's been brought home, carried home unconscious or virtually in an alcohol stupor. He's lying in the bed, and I go and stand on the bed just to see whether, is this man still breathing? Is he still breathing? Because it was everything to me. And then three, it brought a sense of dread of him. I came to fear him because, you see, alcohol changed him. It changed him in ways that were frightening. This was a man who, when he was sober, was quiet and reserved and gentle. And then he drinks, and suddenly he's becoming a little bit more boisterous. He never abused any of us physically when under the alcohol, but he would shout and And as it were, just act up. And that was scary to a boy. Now, the effect of his death, it made me angry at God. It brought me anger. I was angry at God. And yet, I dreaded God. I dreaded him, and yet I hated him. I was so angry because the first time I was told, your father is dead, I said, God has just robbed me of my father. I was angry with God. And with that also came the sense of uncertainty of the future. What does the future hold for me now that this man, who is my rock and anchor, is gone? And then it made me live in general fear and dread, a sense of dread. I couldn't define it, but I was just had quite a lot of load of fear. 4, there was a feeling of being exposed. Now your father is gone, you have no protection anymore. You are exposed. Anything can happen to you. And 5, it made me lose motivation to make anything out of my life. So when he died and my father said, you would go to magazines, show me magazine, and learn to be a fitter, I just said, fine, okay. I didn't care. I didn't really care. I didn't dream anymore. Because what's the point? It's gone. So now let me run the general. I took each of the items and told you its effects. But let me give you the general, broaden the effects even more and summarize them. So I'm going to give you the general effects it had on me. 1, inferiority complex. You become ashamed of who you are and of what you are just because of what you see your father doing, which is different from what other people fathers are doing. And I identified too closely with my father, and so I couldn't separate myself from the man who drank. 2, it made it difficult for me to express emotions. And even now, it is very difficult for me to express emotions, which those in my family and household would tell you. Those who are close to me would tell you. I try, but it doesn't come naturally. So 3, it made me very bottled up. I am quite bottled up. It's difficult for me to let you know what is going on in my mind and in my heart. 4, emotionally unavailable. That's what I became. I could not love and I could not receive love. It made me emotionally unavailable. 5, it made me lose interest in life. I just wasn't interested in life. I just existed. Whatever life came, fine. I had no goals. I had nothing. Because what's the point? And 6, because of all the above, my growth as a person was stunted in all areas. Spiritually, I hated God, and yet I knew I couldn't do without him. And so my spiritual growth was totally hampered. Emotionally, I couldn't grow because I was hiding. I was holding back. It affected me physically because I couldn't go out there to join people and interact with people. Intellectually, I had no motivation to even study or anything. I think it's a good thing that I had a good mind that could absorb, but otherwise, I don't think I would have done well in school. 7, it made me feel a victim. It made me feel a victim, helpless victim. 8, being a victim makes you dependent and weak as a person. 9, I had serious anger issues. Serious anger issues. Now, people see me and they think I'm very tolerant and I don't get angry. They are seeing the latter-day saints. They didn't see when these things were really running my life. And 10, it made me buckle under criticism. The thing I feared the most was to be criticized. And if you criticize me, I just buckled. And will not do that which you criticize me for again. So for instance, if I wrote something and you criticize it, I will not write again. That was the effects it had on me. 11, it made me very fearful in life. If you ask me, why are you afraid? I couldn't point to anything. I was just filled with fear. 12, it made me too eager to please. 13, I didn't want to offend anybody. Just please. 13, there was no inner drive. I had no motivation to achieve anything. 14, because of all that, I was living a double life. The WHYTE people saw was very different from the WHYTE that I knew, that I lived with, that I was. Very, very different. Because you put on one image to suit the public, but you live with another. Now, let me bring you to the turning point in my life. What brought me from the guy who had all this damage to the man you are listening to now. Now, let me clarify this before I go on to the points, that the turnaround was not an event. It was not one single thing that transformed me from the damaged man to the kind of man I am today. It took years. And there were a number of things that happened that aided me, because the hole into which I had dug myself was so deep, not one thing could take me out. So each of the things I'm going to share with you just brought me a little bit higher and out of the hole, until eventually I could find myself out. So the first thing I look back and I think helped with the process of turning around, the process of taking hold again, the process of taking responsibility for my life again and living now, my life now, had to do with drama, theater. It happened in secondary school when I didn't think I was worthy enough to join the drama troupe, and yet some circumstances got me into a play. I shared that experience before, so that's why I'm not going too much into details. But being dragged into the room to play a role for the theater production in school was one of the first things that began to make me feel, oh, you know something, after all, I have something, I can do something. That's why I'm not surprised that I'm doing theater for a living now. I owe so much to theater. I owe even my wife to theater. If you ask her, she will tell you. The second thing that helped me out was becoming school prefect, SP, in secondary school. I had gone through school convinced that nobody knew me. Convinced that nobody knew me. I would hide from anything. I didn't put myself out to do anything. I had all this inferiority complex. I was content when I'm left alone in obscurity. I just wanted to be left alone. Then I get to Form 5, and they were looking for a school prefect, and my name is put up there to take over from the Form 5 students who were going to write their exams. That day, when I looked on the board and my name was on there as school prefect, I was shocked. I was more shocked than anybody in the school. Because who knows me here? Who knows me? But it told me that others have seen something good in me. And if others have seen something good in me, then maybe I may have something good in me. So that also changed quite a lot about how I saw myself, how I thought of myself. It was a good thing. 3, something I read, and it stayed with me all these years. It said this: you are not a failure until you blame someone else. You are not a failure until you blame someone else. I'll never forget that line. And it made me realize, hey, why are you talking about your father? Why are you talking about as if he did something to you or anything? No, he didn't. He was who he was. So don't blame a father's wound. Yes, it is there. So what? Take responsibility for your life. The next thing that helped me out were the scriptures, the Bible. The Bible. There are about 3 things in the Bible that helped me. 1, some passages and verses. Verses like, God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and self-control. That helped me to begin to, again, shed some of those chains and get rid of some of the chains that were tying me down. Verses like, in all things, God works together for the good of those who love him, those who are called according to his purpose. And then I realized, oh, really? So even my father's alcoholism could be used of God. The kind of father I have could be used of God. My experiences in the past could be used of God for good. Those things were very useful. So those were, I'm just giving you two of the passages and verses in Scripture that helped me. The next thing in Scriptures that helped me were the experiences of characters in the Bible. The experiences of some of the characters in the Bible helped me to realize that, hey, don't write yourself off. For instance, Joseph. Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery. Just when he was getting used to that idea, then Mrs. Potiphar frames him up. It doesn't get worse than that. So I read those experiences, and these are people God's eyes were on, and they had faced these things. Then, hey, you having an alcoholic father, having a mother who could not stand you, who rejected you, those are not big deal. Then the experience of David. You remember David? His own father even forgot him that he had a son like that, until he had to be reminded, don't you have another son? Before, that other one. I'm sure in his mind, but you wouldn't need him. He wouldn't be useful. But the third thing in Scripture that helped me were the doctrines in Scripture. The doctrine that God is love. I had been raised to believe that God is this stern God who gets angry when we are enjoying ourselves. As soon as you laugh, God is angry. Hey, why are you laughing? You know, that's the kind of image of God that I had. This God who is constipated and is judgmental and is only looking for an opportunity, an excuse to strike us with something that we have done or have not even done, but he thinks if we got a chance, we will do, so he punishes us for it. Then I realized, no, that's not God at all. God is love. God is love. And that recognition that God is love. Yes, we blame God for a lot. I blame him for the death of my father, because if he loved me, yeah, but it's because he loved me that it happened. I am a far better person because I lost my father at the age I did. Then I recognize another doctrine. God is my father. Why am I so concerned about this earthly man when I have a divine father, a heavenly father? And so that also transformed. I think it killed the feeling of vulnerability in everything, because if God is for me, who can be against me? God is my father and he really cares. And he does. He does. So those things helped. So now let me give you a quick rundown of the new WHYTE, and then I will end with a few lessons for all of us, some takeaways for all of us. So what have I become from all these that have gone on, and from what God has used to turn my situations around? Who is this WHYTE? One, I celebrate my vulnerability. Oh, I know I have issues, but I celebrate it. I'm not afraid to share my weaknesses. I'm not afraid to share my feelings, because I believe they are all part of what it takes. I'm not afraid of your judgment. I'm not afraid of you looking down upon me, because it doesn't really matter. Two, who is this WHYTE? I know I am broken, but I also know it is okay to be broken. I hope you understand. Too many of us are fighting so hard to hide the fact that we are broken. And if anybody points it out to us that you are a very broken person, we'll fight them. But I have come to the point where I say, yeah, I'm broken. I have quite a lot of issues, but it's okay. In other words, what I've done is that I've given myself permission to be human. Too many people don't give themselves permission to be human. I have given myself permission to be human. So if I fail in something, too bad, but life goes on. I'll pick myself up. If I have to apologize to people, I would apologize, but I will move on. I will not be defined by those things. I will not be defined by my feelings. I'll continue striving on to become a better person. Three, I have dedicated myself wholly to honoring God. That's the only thing that runs my life. Does it honor God? Then I'll do it. If it doesn't honor God, it doesn't matter how many people are saying I should do it. I'm not interested. Four, I am determined to utilize the grace of God to its utmost limits. Every grace of God gives me, I drain it. I use it till it is drained of everything. Do you remember when you were young and you drink soft drink and you turn the bottle down and hit the bottle as if there's something left in there? That's what I do with the grace of God. I empty it till there's nothing left and then I ask for more. Five, I allow God to shine through me. I try to reflect God. Do I succeed? No. Nobody will succeed on this part of reality. 6, I reach out and try to be a blessing to other people. Because I realize that in all that I've been through, with all my flaws and everything, my failings, and how far I have come, I have so much that could benefit other people. And so I reach out. 7, I focus on honoring God in my relationships. So in my marriage, I tell myself every time, I am the Christ in this marriage. I am Christ to my wife. And I should be able to tell my wife, and I do tell her, if you want to see how Christ loves the church, look at how I love you. I am Christ. I'm playing that role, and I try to play it well. 8, I don't back away from any challenge. I'm not a very adventurous person, but if I have to do anything, I'm not one of those. I can walk into a meeting and somebody can come to me, oh, Yabo, you are here, you are the chairman. And I'll not say, me? What? No, I'll go. I'll sit there. Chairman, okay, when are we starting? I don't back away from a challenge because it doesn't matter. I don't seek perfection of myself. Every day, I look for opportunities to grow. 9, I lend my strength and wisdom to others. I put myself where others can be strong because they've come into my sphere. They can look at my strength and tap into that strength and be encouraged and have that strength to go on. And finally, I try to be the model of a man. I try to be the model of a man, the model of a husband, the model of a leader, the model of a Christian, the model of a boss, the model of a businessman. Yes, I am a businessman. I know money. Some people don't think I know money. I do know money. And the model of a writer. All that. So that is the new above white. Now, let me quickly go on to the lessons we can take away. I'll try to give you 10 lessons that you can take away. 1, you are not accountable for the life of your father. The life your parents lived, your father or mother, it doesn't matter. It's their life. It's a choice they made. You don't answer for your father. So if you came to me and said, your father was alcoholic, oh yes, he was, I won't feel insulted. No, because I don't answer for him. Why did your father drink so much? Well, go and ask him if you can find him. Why am I answering for him? He's him. I am me. We've got to get to the point where you cut yourself from answering from your parents. Too many of us are doing that. So, one of the biggest insults, do you know that one of the biggest insults in Ghana is for somebody to tell another person, your mother. Oh, your mother. And somebody's angry. Why? You said my mother. So he's ready to fight. Oh, if you tell me your mother, I say, yeah, I had a mother. A very good one. Yes. So what? Stop being accountable for the life your father lived. It was his choice. You have your choice. Focus on your choice. Don't answer for your father. He did the best he could with whatever it was he had. That it was him. You are different. 2, accept that you may have your father wound. Sometimes we deny it. You talk with people and say, oh, my father was a wonderful man. Yes, so was my father, but he still gave me father wound. So we're not talking about whether he's wonderful. We're talking about father wound. The fact that you wanted more, you didn't get. You wished you had another different kind of relationship or a different kind of father. He wasn't that kind of person. That's what leaves a wound. So accept that one and don't live in denial. 3, realize that you have weaknesses. Do you want to know your weakness? Look at the weaknesses and failings of your parents. That's your weakness. You have that potential. So, if you're a man, every weakness of your father is potentially inside you. So watch against it. If you're a woman, a girl, every weakness of your mother is potentially inside you. So you think your mother talks too much, you wait. Your children will be accusing you very soon of talking too much. But be aware that I carry this possible, deficit in life. I know that I could be alcoholic. I carry that as my weakness. And that's why I will not touch alcohol. Because me and you can drink 1 glass. You will go away and be fine. Me, I'll come back again and drink a whole bottle. So I won't put myself there. How do I know? I haven't never drank alcohol. But how do I know alcohol will mess me up? Because it messed my father up. And I am my father's son. 4, Don't be defensive about your weaknesses and failings. You know, because sometimes we get so defensive. The reason why you shouldn't be is that everybody has his own weaknesses and failings. Some people are hiding theirs. Some of us, ours is out there. Everybody sees it, but it's not important. Don't be defensive. Again, you are human. Accept the fact that you are. 5, learn from your father's mistakes. Let the mistakes you saw in your parents instruct you. Let it instruct you so that you don't repeat them. 6, let the fear of God be the primary principle in your life. The fear of God. The fact that I fear God should be able to keep you from a lot of things. The fear of God. And remember, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So don't try to be smart. Just say that God is watching me. God is here with me. I don't want to offend him. And 7, accept the weaknesses and failings of others. It's very easy to get to the point where you accept your own weaknesses. Unfortunately, there are people who recognize that me, I am not correct, but demand that everybody else should be correct. You are the model of everybody around you. If you are not correct, nobody else is correct. And don't expect that of people. So when people fail, when people show you that they are only human after all, don't condemn them. Don't say, I'm so disappointed. I hear people saying, oh, Uncle Bo, I used to respect that man, but he says something. And because of that, I have lost all respect for him. Well, get used to it, you know. Everybody has his failings. So accept people and don't expect perfection from anybody. 8, resolve to break the cycle. What your parents did that you were not happy with, don't visit it on anybody else. In your relationship in particular, don't go around having children with all kinds of women. Your father did that and you were not happy. Why have you already had children with 2 girls? Stop it. Don't pass it on. Break the cycle, because you could be the cycle breaker. And if in breaking the cycle, you have to live a very different life, so be it. If in breaking the cycle, you even have to go unmarried and childless, so be it. That sacrifice you make will save the rest of the family that will come after you, because you would have broken the cycle. 9, read good books. Read good books, Be a reader. Read. Because this is what it does. It neutralizes the effects of your social upbringing. When you read, you are transported into a different world. You begin to live a certain culture and a certain social life, higher than the one you are used to, the one that is in your default. So what happens is that whenever you read, what you are doing is that you have acquired a new app to put on your hardware so you could function in a very different way. And that is why reading is such a key thing. It transforms you. 10, don't look for love in the wrong places. Too many people are doing that. Some people are looking for love in their work, so they throw themselves in their work because they don't want to face who they are. They are looking for love in the wrong places. Some of them, they hop from one relationship into to the other. Just the feeling of being in love is all they want. They run on that adrenaline. 11, look for father figures and role models wherever you can find them. Look for father figures and role models wherever you can find them. Nothing says that your biological father ought to be the only father you know. It is wonderful that you can have fathers of other, make fathers of other people. And go out, look for good fathers. And hold yourself accountable to them. And finally, 12, turn your wounds into wisdom. Turn your wounds into wisdom. The thing that you are crying over could become your source of wisdom. So instead of saying, as for me, no, learn the lesson from it. Ask yourself, what can this teach me? What has this made me to be? And out of it will come a far better person and a wiser person. So that is my experience with the father wound. I don't know about your experience. If you want to share that with us, I'll be very happy to hear you. But the bottom line is this. Each of us can live a very different life. We're socialized in a particular way. We may even have come with a certain programming on our hardware. But like computer, you can always put on a new app. And I'm hoping and praying that you will put on a new app that will transform you and make you a very different person than the kind of person anybody has ever known. So once again, thank you very much for hanging out with me. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll take your interactions, your questions and comments. And remember, my next play, The Woman in the Bathroom, runs at the National Theatre this Sunday and Monday at, that's 1st July and 2nd July. The first show is 4 p.m. and the second show is 8 p.m. I would love to see you at the National Theatre. Hang on, we'll be back very soon after this break.
Roverman Productions, in partnership with the National Theatre and Joy FM, presents the latest ever white play, The Woman in the Bathroom.
I work to make an impact, not for the money.
Impact?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When is your wife's birthday? Give her birthday impact. When my grandchildren are hungry, give them to chew impact. Then when you have died, go and pot your coffee with impact. Nonsense. Impact.
The Woman in the Bathroom shows at the National Theatre on 1st, 2nd, 7th and 8th July 2018 at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. each day. Rate 80 Ghana cedis. Tickets available at all usual outlets. Hotline 0505 546 010. Sponsors Bond Savings and Loans, Allfingel and Frightor from Wilma. Media partners myjoyonline.com, adomonline.com, ghanaweb.com, pulse.com.gh, Logistic Movers, Sweet Melodies, Daily Guide and Gold Street Business. A Woman in the Bathroom. Get your tickets now.
The preparation has been very grueling, but fun.
Great play, great production. Rehearsals is still ongoing, and trust me, this has been one of the baddest rehearsals that have been.
The character I played in the Woman in the Bathroom is that of Mr. Ba. Mr. Ba is a big dollars, not cities.
A bright, colorful stage.
I'm tired of we have shoe, then we have cocoa, and me, I'm a big shoe.
Hey yo, Miyaki, Tanasi, I'm in church. In this world.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us and welcome back. We'll take your interactions now. But I just, you know, whenever, before I come on camera, Kwesi has to do the countdown. If Kwesi ever counted down in a boxing match, they will say he's been bought. Because the gap between, he can count 5, 4, 3, then as if he's forgotten, then 2. After, then he goes home and comes back and before he says 1. Anyway, let's get it going.
Our first question is from Abby.
From?
Abby.
Abby?
Abby, okay.
Okay, go on.
She says, how do you get over being bottled up?
Not easy, but you just have to realize that you owe it to yourself and to the people around you for them to know what it is that you can offer, what it is that is inside you. It will not come overnight, but always challenge yourself that when you have something to say it. Just that find good ways of saying it and effective ways of saying it, and that will be fine.
From Lee, Uncle, does time heal these wounds?
Unfortunately, not time. Time does not. Effort does. You working on it, you becoming aware and taking the kind of steps you need to take would help it. What will happen is that you would only bury it, but it's not going away. And sometimes little things trigger it. And then everybody around you is surprised. I'm sure you've related to somebody who you thought was so gentle and so got it all together. Then something happened and the person lost it. And you're wondering, whoa, what's going on here? And then everybody goes, I'm so shocked. The way he reacted, no, it's always been there, except that something triggered it. So it's important for us not to hide it, to be aware of it and work on it, because it can mess you up at a time you don't expect.
I've been a fan of yours since a friend of mine took me to one of your plays last year in December, The Comeback. as I came home to Ghana for holidays, the father wound is something I take very seriously because it concerns me a lot. My mom gave birth to me and raised me as on her own, and I grew up with the understanding that I don't have a father because he's dead. I had a lot of uncles and aunties that used to help my mother take care of me because she had to work and had no other option at the time. When I turned 16 years old, I got to know from outside people that my father is actually alive and he has a family of his own and is pastoring a very big church. 2 years later, a friend of mine pushed me to go to him to ask him straight ahead if he was really my father. It all turned out to be true, and hell broke loose in my home. I've told him that I've forgiven him, and he is glad about that, but the father-daughter relationship has not developed until now, almost 10 years later. We meet every now and then, and in not so crowded places to have a checkup on each other. And he also helps me. Whenever he can. I would love to meet my siblings and embrace and have a relationship with them because they are obviously my blood. But whenever we talk about them, it's been cut short. Do I have the right as a secret child to get to know my other siblings, younger though they are, obviously haven't heard about me? Would I be breaking a boundary?
You will be. You don't have a right to it. Don't forget that they've also been raised without knowledge of you, and they have a right to that. But there's even a bigger one. Are you doing all this with the permission of your mother and all those who brought you to this point? You know, we get sentimental, but don't forget that when that man wasn't there, there were people who stood in. And you can't, now that you've known your father, suddenly write them all off and say, now I found my father, I'm going to build a relationship with him. He had a chance to build that relationship and he lost it. But a lot of things will have to come with time. You can't force it. And you don't have the right to go and know who else your father fathered. That is no business of yours, unless he wants you to meet them. So slow it down. But I'll be very interested to know, is your mother with you in this? If your mother is not too happy, slow it down, please.
From our YouTube channel, Elise asks, how do you utilize the grace of God or drain it?
Just take God at his word and count on his help. So don't limit yourself to what you think you can do, because the grace is bigger than you. So I promised I would do a play every quarter. I didn't have plays. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I know that God's word says that he has taken hold of my right hand and said to me that do not be afraid, I will help you. And so I was counting on that help. So begin to count on the promises of God and work with them. Take God at his word and test it and run with it. And then you'll find how good God is and the fact that he watches over his word to perform it. So don't operate on your comfort zone. Don't say, as for me, I can do this, I can't do this. This I can never do. How do you know? Try it. That's why those who are close to me hear me make a statement. Try everything once. Don't say, me, I can't do this. No, try it. You never know.
I blame God for some things that happened to me in the past. I used to be a happy child until I lost my father and automatically lost my laughter. But listening to you has made me appreciate that God is actually making sure that all things work together for my good because I love him.
I'm sorry you lost your father. I still remember the day I came home from school and they told me your father is dead. The world ended for me then. But looking back, if I had only known that the end of one world is the beginning of another, I think I would not have hesitated. I would not have spent another minute crying over the life that had ended. You know, I tell people that when babies are born, they cry. If a baby doesn't cry at birth, we think there's something wrong with the baby. But babies cry because they think they are dead, because they think their world is over. You know, 9 months they've been in this very comfortable environment. Then suddenly they are pushed out of that environment and they think it's over. That's what I think. That's what every human being thinks when we are hit with a change. But I look back now and I thank God because without a father to answer to, I was free to explore a lot of things. And that's why I believe that God works everything together for good. But it's not only you. There are lots of people listening to us who have not allowed their parents to die. Their fathers died years ago. Their mothers died years ago. They are still mourning them. You know something? Let that wonderful mother of yours die. Bury her now. Let her leave her. Tell your mom, I let you go. Now I will live my life. Tell your father, I let you go. Go ahead, die. You are dead. Go die. I am living. I'm going to live this life so that wherever you are, you look down upon me and say, yeah, that's my son. I didn't know he could do that. And I'm sure my father says that every time.
Gifty says, I was so broken when my brother, who was a father figure to me, died, just when he helped me to relocate to Ghana. But I thank God for how far he has brought me, because I know if he were here, if he were alive, I would not have made it to where I am today. He would have spoilt me. Thanks, Uncle Ebo.
That's true. That's true. And I'm happy you have that perspective, and keep holding on to that perspective.
From Michael Clotte, Uncle, why is it that some of us turn to beat ourselves very hard for not living up to standard, especially after failing or falling in a sin you vowed never to do again, and thus find it difficult to relate to God as a loving and forgiving God?
You just have to face up to who you are. Sometimes we live in self-delusion. We think we are not. You know, sometimes what happens is that often we know what is the right thing. For instance, I meet young men who know that they should not be sleeping around. They should not be cheating on the woman in the significant other in their lives. But they are doing it. But they know, I shouldn't be doing that. And sometimes they think that knowing means they have become. No, you haven't become. You know, you haven't become. So first, face up to who you are and take a cold look at yourself and decide, is this what I want to remain? And then begin to take the steps to lead yourself out of that hole into which you are digging yourself.
Uncle, I'm facing those habits from my husband, chasing and drinking. But I'm trying to stay from any kind of confrontation, but it has not been easy for me. Thanks for your story. Nice weekend, and have a wonderful holiday to you and your team.
And all the best with you and your husband. I hope he comes into contact with some information that will help him face his own demons. Because it's possible the way he's going, I suspect this is a man who is suffering a father wound he's not addressing. And that is why he's also passing it on to you. I hope that somehow something comes his way that helps him deal with it.
From Prince, I never had a father love. Uncle, how do I love my kids?
You have it in you, Prince. Take what you wished your father, the kind of father you wish you had, and become that kind of father to your children. So, what kind of father would you have wished you had? Now, become that father to your children.
Neil just says, Uncle, can we not answer for our parents when we have their names? No,
you don't have to. You don't have to. They gave you their names. They even gave you their genes. But the choices they made was their choices. What your father became, what your mother has become, is based on choices they made. That one you don't answer for, because you don't control it. Don't make yourself answerable for anything you don't control. You don't control the choices your parents made. It doesn't matter what name they gave you. They answer for it. My father made his choices. I don't answer for the fact that he was alcoholic.
From Nikwate, Uncle, is vulnerability a weakness?
Oh, no. It's a blessing. Vulnerability is a huge blessing.
From Ellie on our YouTube page, in search for father figures, some girls have been compromised. Yeah. How do you identify a good mentor and father figure?
Oh, as soon as you see him going the way of the ordinary man, walk away. That's not your man. Walk away. Yes, because there's a line that should not be crossed in a father-daughter relationship. And when you see that person trying to cross it, don't stay there 1 minute. Move away.
Roslyn has a comment. She says, interesting topic, Uncle, but I would love to hear more about mother wounds because it can be as devastating as father wound.
Yes, it can be, not quite to the same extent. because the role of a father is very different, extremely different.
Hello, Uncle. Thank you for the great teachings. Is it okay for me to keep my partner away from my dad who wounded me? I've forgiven him, but he still hasn't changed. He acts harmless, but he exploits relationships. To what extent can I protect my partner from my dad?
If you're not ready, you don't have to involve him. You don't have to involve him, especially when he's not going to bring anything else on board. If you're not going to make a contribution to your relationship, let him be where you are. You two, you and your partner, be where you are and live your life.
Patricia's question is, how can we as children of God combat the crisis of masculinity?
Come again.
How can we?
And this is a question a girl is asking, right?
Yes.
Patricia.
Yes.
And Patricia is asking what?
How can we as children of God
Yes.
combat the crisis of masculinity?
Patricia, I don't understand your question. Make it clear. So have mercy upon me. I haven't had lunch yet, so you break it down for me so I can deal with it. Yeah, let's go.
Salah is asking, please, Uncle, how is vulnerability a blessing?
It's a blessing because it becomes your strength. When you are no longer hiding. The mask is off. You are not pretending to be what you are not. That is what the strength is. And because of that, you have the chance to be your best self. As long as you are pretending to be somebody else that you are not, you will never live your best life. Your best life begins when you take off the mask and decide, the one who accepts me for who I am, accept me. If you also don't accept me for who I am, tough, move away, let me live my life. And then you live your life to the best of your ability.
From Mommy. Hello, Uncle. My mom had to leave my dad when I was just 5 months, and he never raised a little finger to look for or care for me and my brother, who was 2, and sister, who was 4. I'm 40 now, and he died exactly 2 weeks ago. His family claims we have to bury him. They sent the message through my half-brother. He is his oldest child. My sister thinks we should because we may lose God's blessing, but I don't think so.
You won't lose any blessing. If the family won't bury him, they should leave him. They should leave him. He lost the right to be father. If you want to do it, yes, nothing stops you, but you don't have to. And if they say that because of that they won't bury him, let them leave him there.
Prince Willie says, my father made us fear him so much that whenever we met him, we had to run home. He never loved me, and now that I'm old, I struggle in life. He's telling me to visit him, but I am too hurt that I can't go.
Okay, that's Prince, eh?
Yes, sir.
Prince, one day, go to your father and have a chat with him. Now you are not afraid of him. You are 40. If he does, you can beat him up. I mean, so you don't have to be afraid of him. You do understand? So go and say, Daddy, we need to talk. Pour your heart to him. It may end up with both of you crying. But if he doesn't allow you to do that, then you don't have to go back. But try it.
Yeah, I've gone through.
Right. Any more?
There's a comment, but he says, I grew up without a father and a mother, but the Lord has always guided me till today.
Yeah.
And I thank the Lord for how far he has brought me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Uncle Ebo.
Because God is really Father. And for all of you there seeking for a father, don't neglect God. God can father you in ways you have no idea. He fathered me, and I am a witness to that. All right. Any other? Our time is running out. So,
Uncle, please, my mom likes to interfere so much in my relationship. How do I cope with it?
Your mom? Are you living with her? So find out. I'd like to understand how she manages to do that. If you are living with her, yes, it's easy. But if you are living on your own, then I wonder why she's doing that and why you are allowing her to do that.
Francisca says, Uncle, if you see your mother or father's weakness in you, how do you overcome it or not fall for it?
Pray about it first and resolve that this will not remain true of me. And 3, be on the watch out for them so that whenever the triggers are coming, you know what to look out for. Don't take anything for granted. I have anger issues. So whenever the provocation is coming, I do not pursue the provocation. I know exactly when the anger begins to swell in me. I know where it's coming from, and I become aware of it and say, watch it. You're going down a lane you don't want to go, and then I back off from it.
Chris says, not making my father wound define me, and that's not backing away from challenges either, except acting in your place. I just can't sing, and all the characters sing. In fact, I've been banned from singing in my home and office.
What's the name?
Chris Kote.
Chris, listen to me, Chris. I sing only for my enemies because it's the worst punishment I can think of giving them. So don't worry about that. Not everybody in my group sings. Not everybody who goes on stage sings. If you sing, of course, it's an advantage. But so if that is the only thing holding you back, then don't let it hold you back. So come and join us.
Akosia says, I'm still dealing with fear, the fear of being judged and not being good enough.
It won't go away, but manage it. Become aware of it and don't let it hold you back. Become aware of it. Don't let it hold you back. At any rate, if they judge you, so what? They are no better than you. Do you understand? The people who would want to judge you have their own issues. If they are not worried about, if they are not concerned about their issues and they are concerned about you, leave it for them. That is their issue. You continue pushing your frontiers every time. Don't back away from challenges and continue growing. And very soon you realize that you reduce the room for people to judge you and all that. But if they are judging you, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. What would they judge you on? That you're a human being? So are they. That you're not perfect? Neither are they. So, hey, live your life. Live your life. You make a mistake, admit it. Move on. Learn from it. Move on. Be worried if you have made a mistake 2-3 times on. Then it means you are not growing. It means you are not learning. But that you try something and it didn't work, hey, that is beautiful.
From Jasiwa, Uncle, please, I'm married to a man who has 3 kids already. Please help me to help him be a great father to them, though they are not staying with us, but their mother.
There's something you can do. It's up to him. And sometimes in your trying to make him a great father, you will come across as a nagging woman, and he will tune you out. Just be a good husband, a good wife to this man. That is all you can do. What kind of father he wants to be, he has to be, that is up to him. It's none of your business. Just play your role. Leave him. One day he may play his role as well.
Roxanne says, Uncle, please, how do you deal with a father who doesn't know how you were raised, but wants to push a lady for you to start a relationship with?
And you're allowing him, then it is your fault. The man doesn't know how you were raised. He says, marry this woman, then you also marry him. Then it is more your fault than his. How is it that he even has the right to tell you who to marry? It's up to you. I mean, if somebody doesn't know his place, that is his headache. But you should know the place of that person. If you didn't have any input in my life, and you still want to act as if you can control my life, then if I allowed you, then it is my fault, not your fault. So don't allow him, unless you want to. And if so, then don't blame him. Take control of your life. You are not a victim. You can tell him, you know something? This is not your decision. This is not your call.
From Salah, Uncle, please, why do some mothers discriminate and make it so obvious? Because sometimes I don't agree with some of the choices she makes for me.
They are human. That's why. They are human. I was the favorite of my father, but my younger brother, the one who comes after me, was the favorite of my mother, and she couldn't hide it either. Unfortunately, my champion died, you see, and that brought me. But they are human. Parents are human. When you begin to have your children, you also realize that you love all of them, but there will be one who tugs at your heartstring. Don't feel guilty about it.
Selena says, my siblings and I grew up with the best dad in the world, and for this I am grateful. Prince
Selena, thank God for your father, and I hope to all of you can say that about your fathers. You are blessed, and let your fathers know you appreciate them.
Prince comes back and says that, Uncle, my father calls me every day asking me for money, but he never took care of me too.
And you take his calls? Prince, you take his calls? Yeah, next question, please.
Uncle, how can I build love between my dad and I?
How old are you? It depends on how old you are and how old he is. It depends on who has the initiative. When you are younger, you don't call the shots. But like the one who said he's 40 years old, at this point, you can call the shots and you can define it. So it depends on how old you are. It depends on what the relationship has been in the past. And it depends on what you yourself you want. Because if there hasn't been a relationship there, you don't need that. You don't need to build it. To be nice if it was there, but you don't need it. Well, I think we've done enough with this subject. Next week, God willing, we'll go on to another topic because I think we've done Father's Wound enough. I hope it's been a blessing to you. Continue to be blessed. Continue to evolve. Continue to be the kind of person you need to be. Not the kind of person you are, the kind of person you need to be. And may God sustain and prove himself a father to you. Stay blessed. We'll see you soon.
Roverman Productions, in partnership with the National Theatre and Joy FM, presents the latest ever white play, The Woman in the Bathroom.
I work to make an impact, not for the money.
Impact?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When is your wife's birthday? Give her birthday impact. When my grandchildren are hungry, give them to chew impact. Then when you have died, go and pot your coffee with impact. Nonsense. Impact.
The Woman in the Bathroom shows at the National Theatre on 1st, 2nd, 7th and 8th July 2018 at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. each day. Rate 80 Ghana cedis. Tickets available at all usual outlets. Hotline 0505 546 010. Sponsors Bond Savings and Loans, Allfingel and Frightor from Wilma. Media partners MyJoyOnline.com, AdomOnline.com, GhanaWeb.com, Pulse.com.gh, Logistic Movers, Sweet Melodies, Daily Guide and Gold Street Business. A Woman in the Bathroom. Get your tickets now.
Hello. They call me Uncle WHYTE. I am the CEO of Roverman Productions, but I'm also very much committed to helping you become your